right, welcome to the Arkansas Organic Chronicles podcast, where we discuss anything, everything, and all things related to certified organic food right here in Arkansas. I'm Joe Hannon, production instructor with the CAFF Farm School. With me today is Luke Freeman, our Transition to Organic Partnership Program Coordinator for CAFF. So obviously we are coming to you today live on Facebook and YouTube pages, and we are at the CAFF Farm. Welcome, Luke, and welcome everybody to the show today.
Yeah, great to be here. It's a beautiful sunny day here at the CAFF Farm.
And great choice to sit in the high tunnel and roast and bake. But
yeah, we're getting a little sweaty, but
yeah,
we'll
but
be fine.
It's great. So, awesome, everybody. So we are in the thick of growing season. Luke was just commenting earlier when we were walking around that spring has. Uh-oh. We lost connection.
I still have connection on my end, Joe.
Crap.
Yeah. Do you want to just switch to me?
Yeah, are you still connected?
It looks like it. Yeah, it looks like we're still streaming on my end.
All right, well, I guess we're gonna have to pivot and rotate because I think our computer overheated. So
okay, I gotcha.
All right, so Luke, we're in summer.
We are in summer.
That
we are
just
in summer.
Kind of hit us.
It did. It went from spring to summer real fast.
Yeah, real fast. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. The honeymoon is over for spring. So I guess, Luke, let's just start with, what are you seeing out and around in the world right now, in the farming world?
What am I seeing in the farming world?
Insects, diseases, anything fun, exciting?
Yeah, I mean, what's happening now is, those spring crops are done. The lettuce is bolting. The cabbage moths are flying. The brassicas are they were looking beautiful this spring. The brassicas were looking amazing. It was a beautiful spring for brassica crops. That has changed. They're all looking pretty holy. The cabbage moth larvae, cabbage loopers are eating up the brassicas. So, if you haven't harvested those brassicas already, now's the time to harvest. That's kind of where things
that's pretty much it. Like, we went to wonderful cabbage, wonderful lettuce, too. I'm looking at Karen, and it's like, yep, time to come out, because the field was covered with cabbage moth, which is different. I'm sorry, not cabbage moth, cabbage butterfly, which is different than our cabbage moth that we were trapping for. I feel like the butterfly just hit this week. Like, all of a sudden, the butterfly just started popping. So should be looking at squash vine borer maybe showing up next week. Based on kind of previous year's trends. And we definitely got aphids here out at CAFF, and I got aphids at home. That's for sure.
I've been seeing some at home as well on the tomatoes, for sure. Yeah. I'd be curious if anyone's doing any shade cloth on their lettuce, if that's slowed the bolting, because all my lettuce in the home garden, the Nancy, all the romaine I've got, even like a lettuce mix, greens mix, like, they're done. They're all bolting.
And usually they do, but who knows?
Yeah.
Should we go start taking a walk around the farm?
Yeah, let's start walking.
Cool. Well, we don't need the other computer, so
I think we're good.
We're gonna go and hang out with us as we go for a little walk around the farm.
Here we go. Let's see.
So we're going to start out at Karen's incubator field plot and just kind of take a little closer look at her brassicas, as they are, honestly, she's in the middle of harvesting today and yesterday, and everything out here was covered with real cover right up until, right up until this morning. I guess she started pulling stuff off. And you can see a little bit of row cover on some of her brassicas yet. And you can definitely see her, I'm standing on her bed. You can definitely see cabbage butterflies kind of bounce around out here. So
How can you tell the difference between the cabbage butterfly and cabbage moth?
The cabbage moth is a brown moth that tends to fly more at night. You don't see it out in the daytime. Whereas the butterfly is a white butterfly, and you see it daytime like this.
Nice. Do the larvae look different between the two?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of variability with the larvae.
Yeah.
They all do the same damage. So
Yeah,
they all
functionally
still
they're the
eat.
same.
Like if Karen doesn't get this out of the field here quick, a lot of the stuff is going to turn
Yeah.
next week. But like I said, I think she's planning on getting a lot of it out. So
Yeah.
I think it's also kind of interesting to look that Karen had road covers or tarps out here. You can see the field next door to her that she's got tarps, but yeah, we've had so much rain that the tarps just aren't fully able to kind of keep up with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can see
A lot of weed pressure.
A lot of weed pressure. She's gonna need to come in and get mowed and get covered before she replants. So.
Yeah. Has she talked to you about her strategy for dealing with those weeds in between?
No, I don't know what her plan is for cleanup and replant. If she's gonna tarp or not.
Yeah.
But those beds down there have been tarped for a month plus now. So I imagine those are her next beds to plant into.
Oh, nice. Oh, that'll be great.
So I know she's planning on coming back into these beds though, because she said she's got to get them cleaned, get them ready to turn.
Yeah, that's great. She has those tarp beds ready to go.
Yeah, I definitely. There's something to be said for plastic, right? Like.
Oh, absolutely.
As we walk through like a lot of our large scale tractor fields, like the fields are still pretty clean. And honestly, I walked down where we were cultivating, and even then, because we were able to cultivate kind of in the middle of all this rain, it's actually the fields are pretty clean right around the plants yet.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had some bare grounds where we went through with finger weeders and shovels to clean up around some of those brassicas, and the weeds are not bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But again, we got in there and we were able to cultivate and clean things up a little bit.
Well, good. I'm just now noticing, is that Protect Net, that insect netting she has?
It's Protect Net or similar to that brand. I don't know if it's actually Protect Net, because I think Protect Net is a little bit on the pricier side. But yeah, it's insect barrier netting, not row cover.
Yeah, yeah. Which would keep those cabbage butterflies off.
Keeps cabbage butterflies off, keeps squash bugs, keeps squash vine borer. Pretty much any of your large insects, it'll do a pretty good job of keeping it out without raising the temperature a whole lot. And yeah, you can leave it pretty much out there. I don't know, maybe 2, maybe 3 years of use out of it, depending on how hard you are on it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you apply it and store it and roll it just like you would row cover.
Yeah, and the biggest downside I'm seeing is it's hard to weed when you have your insect netting over the row. And
yeah, you're not going to come in and do a whole lot of weeding. And that's honestly why we didn't do a lot of that Protect netting on our large-scale brassicas, because we wanted to be able to come in and do some actual weeding and maintenance on the field, which you can't do. Once that is out there, you just can't get in there and do a lot of cleanup.
Right.
You can clean up row middles, at least at tractor scale, but you can't get it right along that edge of that plastic.
No.
And then, it just gets messy. So, fortunately, we didn't have a lot of brassica cabbage moth problems this spring.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, there was at least one.
We only sprayed
right?
one time this year.
Okay.
Yeah, way at the start of April, we had really high numbers.
Yeah.
And then the numbers have been low, low, low. Even last week, the numbers were still low, so we really didn't have much issue until the butterflies started popping.
Yeah.
Nice.
See anything else over here?
No. Should we go look at some tomatoes?
Let's start walking.
All right. I really hope that we're still connected and we didn't lose connection with my computer cooked.
It looks like it. I mean, as far as I can tell.
Okay. Let's take a quick pit stop here, and I'll meet you back somewhere halfway down the row.
Some beautiful tomatoes here, high wire trellising. Let me get some close up of these fruit clusters. Just absolutely beautiful. A little cherry tomato on this side. And then we've got a full-size slicing tomato on this side.
So look, these are indeterminates, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. They look really healthy, don't they?
They look beautiful. They look beautiful.
Really, really good.
Really good. Do you know the varieties, by chance?
I don't. Not off chance.
Mm-hmm.
And Caitlin seems to disappear in a void when we do live sessions. So, rightfully so. She's got to take some lunch. But, we have seen a few issues have been popping up this year. We had aphids, a lot of aphids. I know we've got some aphids on the far end of the field. A good sign that you have aphids, though, look for the lady beetles and the lady beetle larvae.
Right, because they'll be eating.
They'll be eating. If you see them, that's a pretty good sign that you've got aphids. And we definitely have aphids. I think we sprayed them with soap a couple of times.
And the soap, you're just wanting to keep an eye on the temperature, yeah?
You want to keep an eye on the temp and the sun intensity. So, I would not spray soap right now. And 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, you run the risk of burning your plants. Nice thing about soap, though, it's a little bit safer than a horticulture oil.
Okay.
Have you used oil much? Or?
Yeah. Did quite a bit on the berry crops.
Okay.
For mites and aphids.
Yeah, mites and aphids. So
yeah,
soaps and oils are great. Oils will tend to burn a little bit more, though, in my experience. But oils also kill eggs or have some activity on eggs where the soaps don't.
I see.
So if you're using soaps, I'll come in and say you got to spray every 2 or 3 days for about 3 times to get all those egg hatches.
Because after the hatch, you gotta
come back and get them.
I see.
Yep.
That
Whereas if you spray a couple of times and you don't get them under control, come back with an oil because you should be able to nip those eggs.
Good to know. Good to know. I mean, do you prefer morning or evening sprays?
Honestly, I do it evening so that you have all night to kind of chill out and not burn.
Yeah.
I had to spray soap. I sprayed soap the other day at home because I had a bunch of aphids in my peas, and then I had my tomatoes and peppers that were going in. So I came in and hit it with soap and just completely doused everything. But then I came back about 10 minutes later and I washed it off. So garden, not farm.
Yeah.
So I came back in and rinsed it off so that I didn't have any risk of burning.
Okay.
So you can do that too.
Okay. How much time would you leave it on there?
Couple minutes. I mean, it's a contact, so as soon as it hits, they find it, they die. You can rinse it off.
Nice. Okay.
And honestly, you can even just use water. I just use water as a way to knock them off the plants.
Yeah.
And that is, a reasonably effective approach, at least getting them off the plant. So they might come back, but yeah.
So here, I mean, we're looking at the high wire. Do you want to talk a little bit about the setup, just in case someone's not familiar?
Sure. So we've got an indeterminate tomato plant here, and this is on what's called a high wire or a trellis type system, where the plants are going to grow all the way up to this top pole. And here you can see we just have a wire, so we're going to run these plants up the pole to the top of the tunnel here, basically. But you can also get drop spindles so that you can start pulling these plants down as they keep getting taller and taller. So we could take these indeterminate tomatoes, probably, in Northwest Arkansas all the way up to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
If you can keep them healthy and things like that. But these indeterminates are just going to keep going up and up and up. So you got to find a way to bring them down. And so you can see here, they started doing some pruning and training on these. So with these determinants, you're only keeping the main leaf. And then all the laterals are coming off. And so you can see here, they took too much off here. So this is a leaf they took off. This is a leaf they took off. That's a leaf they took off. Nope, that's lateral.
Yeah.
So
looking at it, just so people know, so lateral would be right here.
Lateral would be kind of in that inner node.
Yeah, in the crotch, right?
In the crotch. And so this whole structure, this whole thing is a leaf. It's pretty crazy that's a leaf, but that is a leaf, and that's what you want to leave intact. And then there'll be a new shoot that comes out of here in the crotch between the stem and the leaf. That's what you want to take off. And I usually like to leave a few more leaves at the bottom of the plant while you're still ripening this lower cluster. Each of these clusters is basically getting energy from the leaf above and the leaf below. And so it looks like they did keep the one below it. So.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah. So the bulk of the energy for that cluster is coming from these 2 leaves above and below. So then as you start ripening and pulling clusters off, you can start taking off these bottom leaves. So So, and you'll start to see they might start to show like a little bit of nutrient deficiency in things. It's because they're rediverting energy and nutrients elsewhere.
I see. So that might not necessarily be like a disease issue.
No, often it's not. You might see some nitrogen or some magnesium deficiency showing up on these bottom leaves. And my rule of thumb is a little bit of magnesium deficiency here is okay.
Okay.
Usually what that signals to me is that I've got enough nutrients, enough potassium, and enough calcium to prevent blossom end rot and blossom blotchy ripening.
Okay.
So I always go and kind of aim for just a little bit of magnesium deficiency as like my signal of I'm okay nutrient-wise.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I grew a lot of tomatoes in my life.
Yes, I know you did. What, for people who aren't familiar, what does that magnesium deficiency look like?
The magnesium deficiency in its early stages is kind of a yellow chlorosis, kind of in the middle veins of the leaves. So it'd be kind of right in the middle section here. And it'll be kind of tied and looped and not crossing these major veins. And then as it gets worse, it'll turn to purple and then it'll turn necrotic. But when you're just at that yellow stage, you're fine.
Okay.
At least on the bottom set of leaves.
Okay.
If it's moving up further into the canopy, you got a problem. You're magnesium deficient. And you need some Epsom salts to take care of it.
Okay. Epsom salts. Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, like a foliar application of Epsom salts twice usually will kind of clear that up.
Okay.
But most of the time it happens when you're over applying supplemental potassium and calcium.
Okay.
So if you're over applying potassium to manage blossom end rot and manage like quality of fruit comes from potassium.
I see.
But like the cell structure and having that nice clean fruit, that comes from your calcium and magnesium.
Okay.
And so we get blossom end rot because we don't get enough calcium to that fruit. And so people tend to over apply those two nutrients, but because they're all kind of very similar nutrients, all kind of going in, I don't know, kind of like the same doorway into the roots. You got too much one or of the others, you end up with deficiency of one.
I
so
see.
If you're over applying calcium and potassium, you end up magnesium short.
Okay. Which you'd err on that side.
I err on that side because that doesn't have any major impact on your fruit quality typically.
Okay.
So
yeah. Good to know.
See, we'll see if we can find a little bit of blossom end rot. I can't hear, but we've got a little bit of zippering. So we've got a pollination issue right here. So we got a little bit of zippering, or it might just be some physical damage from, laying on the ground before they got it trellised up or something. But that's just a physical damage. It's fine to eat. It's not great for marketability, but it's fine to eat. Are you a cluster thinner on indeterminate tomatoes?
No, I've never. No.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I cluster thin like crazy.
Okay.
When I'm looking at tomatoes like this, like there's no way this plant is ripening 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tomatoes and gonna have like nice large slicers.
Okay.
So a lot of times I take off these bottom. I'll leave 3 or 4. And so hopefully these 3 or 4 will size up a little bit more, and you're not wasting energy on 3 small tomatoes that you're gonna cull.
Right.
So I'll come through as I'm pruning laterals and stuff. I'll come through with the snips, and I'll snip these off when they're in that real small stage. So right here, right now, as I'm setting fruit, I'm going to let 1, 2, 3, 4 set, and then I'm going to come back in and nip the excess off.
I see.
It's an extra step, but if you're harvesting that fruit later and it's just going to be culled because it's small, it's a lot quicker to do it in here.
Right.
And now.
Yes. And like you're saying, that energy is going to go into the fruit you're actually selling.
In the fruit I'm selling or into the further cluster it's going up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is 3 good fruit per cluster.
3 or 4 is kind of usually my goal. Sometimes on these like earlier clusters, bottom clusters, maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
But you can already tell like, this one, and this one, they're not going to size up.
No.
They're small.
Yes.
And fruit go into, they do cell division and then cell expansion. So if you can get these cluster thinned off when these early first couple of fruit are in that cell division, they're making all the cells that they're going to have, they can make more cells. And then when it gets into the cell expansion stage, there's more cells to expand.
Right.
It should give you a larger.
That makes sense.
In theory.
Yes.
Doesn't always work in practice, but in theory.
Yes. Good to know. Okay, and that's just with slicers. We've got some cherry tomatoes over here.
Yeah, and these are intended to sell as a whole cluster. And so I think Caitlin's plan is to allow this whole cluster to kind of ripen or get mostly ripened, and then they'll snip it here and sell it as a whole cluster, not individual fruitlets.
Ah.
Yeah, so this is more of a cluster cell than a cherry tomato cell.
I see. And so that sounds like the harvest would be more efficient.
Harvest is more efficient because you're pruning here. Much more like a grape where you're taking the whole grape cluster.
Yes.
You're harvesting, I don't know if you can see that there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to snip it here at the snips, and you're going to take the whole cluster. And once it kind of reaches your full physiological maturity, so these are going to be pretty red. These will be at the breaker stage on the lower end, and then you sell that, and then you can start from eating on the upper cluster, and then they're going to turn red and kind of soften up as they go down.
So for the customer, they're getting vine ripened cherry.
You're getting
tomatoes.
a vine ripened cherry tomato that's a lot easier on the farmer. Yeah.
Nice. Yes. And it differentiates you at market selling the clusters as opposed to a little pint or quart of.
It does. Frankly, it's just a lot faster to harvest.
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily. You still probably need to put it in a container to keep the fruits intact. But,
yeah. So. Yes, but then same considerations when it comes to leaving at least one leaf below.
One below, cluster. One above. Yeah, then eventually you'll start pruning off the bottom ones here as it goes. Mm-hmm. But like here, I think we were a little aggressive.
Yeah.
We took maybe a few extra. But we're student farm. They're learning.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
At least they haven't taken the tops off. That happens all the time. So leave the taps. So Luke, what's this guy? What are these little things here? Can you see that?
Yeah, are these adventitious roots?
Yeah.
Oh, and I see an aphid.
Oh, we do got an aphid.
I don't think the audience at home can see that.
Probably not.
We got an aphid, right?
They probably know what aphids look like.
Yes.
When I was out here last week preparing, not only did we have aphids, but we had ants on the tomatoes farming the aphids for the sap.
Yes.
It was really cool to see.
It's always cool.
But then, Kaylin came in and did her job and cleaned them up.
Yeah. So those adventitious roots, is that because the vines are leaning? Because the stems are leaning?
I don't know. It could just be ground is kind of wet. It could just be variety. Like some varieties are just going to throw out adventitious roots. Maybe because of leaning. I don't know.
Yeah. But is there anything management-wise to take into consideration there, or
just watch your water?
Okay.
Right. So as we're at growth and development stage, so now you want to have a really flat, wet, dry cycle on your water, which is a little hard to do when we're getting inches of rain every week, seeping sideways. But if you're running your irrigation zone every 2 or 3 days, and just keeping a really flat curve, that's going to might cost some of the adventitious roots, but it's going to keep from having blossom end rot.
I see.
Kind of everybody says dump more calcium on. Yeah, it's really about managing water cycles.
I see. Because it could be that the roots just don't have the moisture to pull in the calcium they need. Yes?
It's just about getting them. There's probably plenty of calcium in the soil. It's about getting it to the far points of the plant itself and having enough calcium still in the plant by the time it gets there.
Yeah. So we got one drip line. Is that usually adequate? Did you ever do 2 drip lines?
That's adequate.
Yeah, one's fine.
One's fine for tomatoes. So, should we see if we can find some ants or anything?
Yeah. Let's keep walking.
We've got. I don't have my clock to see where we're at time-wise.
We're at 12:22, so we're doing good on time.
We are seeing a little bit of physiological leaf curl. We got a little bit in here, and actually, hey, look at that. We got some magnesium showing up.
Oh, cool.
So you can, I don't know if that's going to completely show up, but that little bit of discoloration there on that leaf is probably a little bit of magnesium deficiency.
I see.
Yeah. But this is physiological leaf curl. Generally, they say it's not harmful to overall yield or not impactful to yield because you still got photosynthesis, but it's a sign that the plant's not happy. It could be a moisture issue, it could be a heat issue, or it could just be a variety that's not tolerant to your growing practices.
Interesting.
If you're growing hybrids, they tend to do it less than some of our other varieties.
Okay.
Like growing a good name brand hybrid shouldn't do a lot of leaf curl. But my rule of thumb is, got another aphid. Rule of thumb is if you got a lot of leaf curl, move on from that variety. It's just not suited for your conditions.
That's very good to know. Very good to know.
And we've had a few folks send some pictures where the entire plants at this stage already were already just completely curled up. And that's, maybe it's not going to have an impact on yield, but it definitely does. As you get leaf curling, it exposes more of that fruit to sun scald damage.
Yeah, and then I imagine you're just doing less photosynthesis. when the leaves are
You
curled
would
like
think,
that, you'd
yeah.
think.
You think you got less coverage.
Yes,
so.
exactly.
But I think it definitely kind of depends on severity.
Yeah.
This isn't bad, but you know, this is June and we're just hitting 90 degrees. So
right.
what are these going to look like in a couple weeks? I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I am seeing more aphids.
Yeah.
Right here.
And I think on this side of the field did have more aphids.
Yeah.
And this is where I kind of saw more of the ants.
Yeah, and look, the lacewing right here.
Yeah.
Green lacewing.
Oh, yeah. She's hunting aphids, right?
Yeah, yep. Aphid eater.
Nice.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's go and take a look at some roller crimped cover crop.
Let's do it. Okay. Also, it's getting toasty in this tunnel.
It is getting toasty in this tunnel. And apologize, everybody. We're going to have apparently a test system going on.
Seems like that happens every time we do a live on the farm.
Yeah, yeah, because I think we're live on the first Tuesday of the month. Yeah, so let's head down here and look at the cover crop.
Okay.
So we're going to head down and take a look at some crimped rye. I don't know that there was any peas in there, but it's just rye planted into small-scale beds. They didn't plant or seed anything kind of in between the rows or the walkways and pathways. But I think one of the interesting things there to see is that you can tell where they didn't have a lot of good growth of the rye, the weeds are coming up. And where they had really good coverage with the rye, it's doing a really good job of keeping weeds down on some of the cucurbits that they have here.
There we go. So we're looking at the field now. Beautiful golden rye.
Yeah, it looks really nice. This has been crimped a couple weeks now with some brassicas, or not brassicas, cucurbits. And you can see, like, they just didn't have good vegetation growth down here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weedy.
Yeah, some buckwheat coming up. I wonder if that's from a previous cover crop.
It's probably a previous cover crop.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially being on the end row here.
Uh-huh.
But this really kind of shows why you got to have, if you're going to roller crimp like this, you got to have good, complete coverage in order to keep these weeds down, because now you can't do anything about it.
No.
Right? But we can walk down here where they had a lot better coverage further into the field. And like in row here, this is doing a pretty good job.
Oh,
yeah. We got pretty thick mat, good coverage. It's going to hold up for a while. But it shows, you know, they didn't seed in the alleyways, and it shows we've got grass and we've got sedge and everything coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely would be a big fan of just, I think they seeded this with the Jang seeder. Just come and make a couple passes on the pathway too, just to give yourself a little bit more coverage.
Yeah, broadcasting if you need to.
Yeah, or broadcasting, because you can see like they're laying down the rye, but it's kind of ballooning out into the walkways.
Yeah.
And then you're just getting a little bit thin because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it really does. We were talking about it. That was just crimped down with like a wooden board on some rope, stomped down, maybe a T-post.
Yeah.
Just very doable for small scale.
And I think last year they did rye with a pea mix, and that rye lasted 12 plus months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they grew multiple crops in it, and then overwintered it, and then mowed it down, and got rid of it this spring sometime. I think there was a different day that we had looked at it. Maybe Kaylin and I had looked at it back in April, maybe. And it was, you could tell like the cover crop was just a little bit thicker, and I mean that field was clean.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, I don't know. I think my take home is peas and rye.
You would do the peas too?
I think I'd do the peas too.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you're just getting more density.
More density
of
and
the
you're getting
biomass is like a high canopy and like a low canopy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see any downside to doing that.
And you're getting nitrogen. A lot of times we're coming through, if we're going to do a roller crimped rye cover crop and conventional ag, we're coming through and we're putting nitrogen down
Oh yeah, exactly.
to fertilize it and give it a boost, or coming after corn or something where it's picking up residual. So
Yeah.
You're giving it a little bit of boost. If you're just going to grow some peas with it, it's just going to help that out.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this looks pretty good. We'll see how fast these cucurbits can branch out and kind of cover. The little bit of spots that we got may be kind of a non-issue pretty quick.
Yeah, it also helps that this field block, I mean, the weeds have been under control because of the tarping and the intensive management.
Yeah, it's the way Kayla manages it. She doesn't have the weed pressure like our tractor skill does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So a few holes are not going to kill her.
Yeah, totally.
So, should we look at some determinate tomatoes and peppers and basket weaving and Florida stick and weave?
Let's go in there. Cool. And just on our way, we can look at these insectary buffer strips, just providing habitat for pollinators and other beneficial insects.
And wave to all the farm school students working on the group plots.
Exactly.
So Luke, do you grow more determinate tomatoes at home, or?
Usually a mix. Usually a mix. You know, we like the heirlooms. Can't get away from the Cherokee Purple, and usually like a Brandywine, even though more than half of them, you know, we just toss because of cracking or whatever. But you know, they're a beautiful tomato. Everybody loves them. Yeah. But then so we'll do some of those, and then some determinates like Celebrity, or I've been trying some new ones like Jolene this year.
We're kind of moving on from Celebrity, man. That was a new tomato when I was in college, 20-some years ago.
But anyway, one's like that, and then of course like some Sun Gold. Those are just crowd pleaser. The kids love them. They're so productive. Yeah. So yeah, usually mix at home. Cool. But here we've got some determinants with, you're saying the basket weave method?
Yeah, so I call this the basket weave method. We missed a few, but yeah. Yep, so this is the basket weave. So you can see that they are looping around the post here, and then they're just creating one big basket around all the tomatoes, 3 or 4 tomatoes kind of in between the stakes here, looping back and bringing it back on the back side of the plant. And so you can see they've done a lower basket and they've done an upper basket, and pretty typical to see 3 or 4 plants, a wooden stake, and 3 or 4 plants, a wooden stake, 3 or 4 plants, and then switching to a steel post just to give it a little bit more structure and rigidity. So groups of 3 steel posts, groups of 3 steel posts.
So it's like 2 wooden posts between each steel post.
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty common.
Yeah.
I usually do groups, 3 plants, 3 tomatoes, 3 peppers, wood post, and then
so 3 groups of 3.
Yep.
And we were talking about this earlier, that you were saying, Joe, you like to start with the Florida weave, the Florida stake and weave, just to get more support, and then move to the basket. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yep. So if you do a weave where you come in and you grab the plant on this side, and then you take the string and you come around and catch the plant on the back side, and then you come back around and catch the plant on the front side, and then back and loop around the plant, and then opposite going back, you essentially kind of trap the tomato plant and keep it from moving this way like the basket does, but you also keep it from moving this way. So it just gives it a little bit more structure and support in that early stages. So a lot of times I'll do that more Florida stake and weave for the first 2 strings, and then I'll switch to more of a basket as I go up.
Yeah, and the advantage of the basket, you have more of an open canopy.
Frankly, it's just
easier.
Once they get large, it gets too hard to weave them.
Yeah.
You know, the lower, you've just got one main stem, but once they start branching off and you've got multiple stems on these determinate types, you just can't weave around them as easy.
Yeah. Do you like to do any pruning initially on like determinants with a stake and weave?
Yeah, I'll prune the leaves up until like the first cluster. I'm trying to find a good example here. Yeah, here we go. So this is our first cluster. So I'll leave all the leaves from the ground on up, and then I'll take the laterals off those lower couple branches. Yeah. So, you know, I would have left the leaves here and here, but taken the laterals off.
Right. So
just because you're feeding that cluster from these lower leaves.
Yes.
You're feeding the upper part of the plant.
So like right here, we have a lateral that's below the first cluster.
Yep.
So this one could have come off.
It could have. I wouldn't now because you're probably going to harm the plant at this
I
point.
see.
But-
Yes.
And sometimes that is, judgment call on that one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we'll tuck her in though. Keep her inside.
So ideally, though, so you're saying pruning laterals before the first cluster, then after that, you just let it go?
Just let it go. Yeah. Just let it be. Keep it watered. Keep it fed. Kind of the same rules apply. You want to keep that irrigation curve pretty flat. Every 2 or 3 days, realistically. Get yourself some tensiometers and really watch that soil moisture curve. Tomatoes should be fairly deep rooted, so if they came through and broad forked here, these tomatoes should root down to 18 to 24 inches. And it's just really hard to know how wet it is that far down without tensiometers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think tensiometers make a big impact. And then, now is the time as you're starting to set fruit to start kind of managing for blossom end rot and managing potassium and things. So if you've got a history of blossom end rot, now's the time to maybe think about a little supplemental calcium and, like I said, flattening out that irrigation curve.
What would be some preferred, say, organic calcium fertilizers?
Oh, good question. Go to the Armory website and hit a punch in for calcium. Yep.
Would you go liquid?
Yes. Liquid.
Yes.
Yeah, liquid so that you can run it through the drip system. Yeah. Otherwise, I was just looking at buying some from Seven Springs the other day, and they had a couple options and whatnot. So most of your fertilizer suppliers will have a calcium of some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And it's going to be liquid.
Yeah. And then remind me, were you saying apply to the soil or foliar?
Calcium and potassium go soil. Magnesium goes foliar.
Gotcha.
So magnesium, usually that's just an Epsom salt for like a corrective action because you over-applied calcium and potassium. 1 or 2 applications, then you back off the calcium and potassium supplemental, and that'll clear up usually within 7 to 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah. If it doesn't, you've way overapplied. Right? A little goes a long ways.
Yeah. And so one thing we haven't talked about, it's kind of assumed, all these tomatoes are under plastic.
Yeah. What's your thoughts?
The benefits of that, I mean, to me, a lot of it just has to do with keeping moisture off the leaves, so reducing foliar diseases, also reducing soil splash, so you're not getting the inoculum from the soil onto the leaves. Also just regulating moisture like we were talking about.
Yeah.
You're kind of controlling when the moisture goes on.
You're not going to have you're going to minimize your splitting and cracking. Keep it in mind, though, like we are planted right up against the edge here.
Yeah, so you're going to get some incursion from
You're going to have some incursion on the outside rows, but the inside 2 rows should be pretty good. You run a little bit of splashing, but again, it helps, right?
It definitely helps.
The case of tomatoes, and I think Kalen was going back and forth between plastic versus just shade cloth. I think in the case of tomatoes, plastic makes sense. They're really more super susceptible to foliar diseases, and these being later tomatoes, they're going to get hit by that August rain.
Yes.
So if we can keep these clean, now they're going to get hit by the rain this weekend. But keep them clean, pays off. So.
Oh, absolutely.
The peppers over here, though, I don't know if you want to walk over to the peppers before we wrap the show. Yeah. We'll have to make our way up to the computer, too, to actually log off. The peppers, on the other hand, peppers have a pretty good disease package, so I'm more inclined to shade cloth peppers.
For the fruit quality.
For the fruit quality and keep sun scalding.
Yeah.
Temperatures should be a little bit cooler with the shade cloth than just with the plastic on top. But hard to know. We could stay wet all summer long, in which case the plastic will pay off in here.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know for sure.
Do you think with the diffused light environment under plastic, you'd still see some reduction in the sun scald?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No, this is new plastic.
Okay.
You should have pretty good light transmission. You're still going to see sun scald.
It's
going to be hot.
Yeah.
It's going to be hotter. That's the downside. When you go with plastic, it's great because it keeps the plants dry, but it's hotter. You end up with more sun scald. You end up with more weird nutrient things that can show up under that heat.
I see.
And your fruit quality may not be as high in like July and August.
Yeah. And then, so looking at the trellising we have another case of the basket weave.
Looks like basket weaving. Yeah, and it doesn't keep that lateral movement on the what I assume is jalapenos here.
Yeah.
But,
So a similar recommendation than you're saying. You could start with the Florida steak and weave.
wrap them, yeah, and then come back in and just do a basket. Even if you just do that first one, and then come back in with baskets, it's just going to keep that plant a little bit more stable.
Peppers just love to fall over.
They do. I almost treat peppers as like a 2-over harvest. I break so many of them. My yield on peppers is terrible.
Yeah. They just get so
like
top-heavy.
it's like green beans. I just ruin the plant harvesting. So I only grow bush beans, so I can just pull the whole plant, strip them, and walk away. So I'm about like that with peppers. Like I break half of them off. So, yeah. All right, Luke. Let's head back up over to the desk here and see. Let me check my notes and see what we missed because I printed out notes for the first time today and then didn't follow them.
That's how it goes.
Yeah,
that's how it's goes. Hopefully, by writing the notes, it makes you remember what.
Hopefully, yeah. I think we caught most stuff. So.
Yeah.
I apologize if anybody made comments or questions. I can't see them, so we'll follow up in the chats later. So Luke, how is everything looking at your place overall, considering all the rain that we've had and all the storms that we've had?
Yeah, I'm starting to see a lot more weed pressure, but in the spring beds, and so I'm just ready to pull out all the spring crops.
Okay.
Tarp those spring beds. In the summer beds, I've been using landscape fabric, so that's keeping the weeds under control. But it's like we talked about at the top of the show. It's like spring is over. We had a really, really wonderful spring. Love the spring garden, but now it's time for the summer garden.
Yeah. I've got a lot of my lettuce and stuff from spring. What I haven't harvested yet is starting to create heads and ball up. It's going to be bolting here pretty quick.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've got a lot of brassica, or I've got a lot of kohlrabi, but it's all within like 7 to 10 days harvest.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at just getting things kind of shut down and cleaned up.
I know. I'm gonna be sad. Gonna miss those spring salads.
Yeah. Same. So
let's see. Okay, you were able to pull it up there.
Yeah, I think we're pulled up here. So I don't. Anything last comments you want to share, Luke?
I'm not sure. Can we see if we got any comments from the audience?
I didn't see any comments from the audience, so I think we're caught some good there. Yes. So. All right. Well, let me find my. I'm gonna borrow that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, Luke. Let's wrap it up then. We are 45 minutes, right on time. Look at that. It's like a plan list or something.
Yeah. Okay. So some other things, more just with the top program. If any of you guys are in Central Arkansas, we've got a field day at Rattle's Garden in Valonia. Tara Straighton's the farmer. She's a long-time organic farmer in Central Arkansas, selling to the Hillcrest Farmers Market. So in recent years, she's been focusing more on providing habitat for pollinators, supporting butterfly species,
and creating agritourism around that.
Yeah. So
different
really,
business model.
Yeah, different business model, kind of in a transition. So it'll be interesting. If you're interested, if you're in the area, we'd love to see you there. That's going to be June 22nd. You can register on our website. It's arkansasorganic.uada.edu/events. You should be able to find the registration link for that. Again, Sunday, June 22nd at 3 p.m., 3 to 6 p.m. So yeah, just want to talk about that. Trying to think if there's anything else top related to plug.
We have an integrated pest management for organic control of insects in fruit and vegetable production next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Registration is still open for that as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one.
That should be fun. We've got a lot of guest speakers coming in for that one, and it's going to be a little classroom. It's going to be a little bit out in the field, and overall should be a bunch of fun.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, all the input we get from organic farmers, the two top issues are Weeds and bugs.
Weeds and bugs. And occasionally, what variety to grow? But mostly weeds and bugs.
And the record keeping.
Yes. Nobody likes that, though. All right. Should we wrap?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing the camera and the
Great
mics
time
in.
as well.
And
Yeah.
so, boatload of fun. Luke and I will be on monthly, the second Tuesday of the month. So our next one will be July 8th at noon right here on Facebook and YouTube Live. Current hot topics in the organic industry and what's going on. And by July, there should be a whole new set of summer problems to
I'm
deal with.
sure there will be, yes.
We'll find a field farm and go and walk and talk, and yeah, all good. If you'd like to join us on the show, if you'd like to be a guest host, if you'd like us to come to your farm and do a live podcast from there, we would love that. Drop me a note. All right, so this podcast is supported in part by the USDA Ag Marketing Service Transition to Organic Partnership Program, the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture. Thank you, everybody. Luke, thank you so much.
Always
a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Yeah. See you next time.
See you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Oops, I overheated again.